everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Journey. It's been a couple months since I've recorded, and I decided to take a couple months off because a big part of my own journey has completely shifted. And I decided that it was now time to get back in the saddle again, as they say. But a couple months ago, I actually found out that I am going to be a mommy. So this was something that was completely unexpected. I'm very excited about it, but was definitely something that was not on my radar or something that I had planned for. But very excited to talk about it and dive into kind of what this experience has been for me. So a couple months back, I found out that we're expecting this is our first child, my husband and I, and we found out back in November. But it's kind of funny because, like I said, I wasn't expecting this, but how it kind of came about, I almost now looking back at it, kind of see the synchronicities and see how things kind of played out where it makes sense to where I was like, oh, there were signs along the way. But for the longest time, I would say probably, I don't know, it's been about the last 2 years. My whole concept or whole feeling towards, starting a family was really just kind of, I let it go. I let it go in the sense of, if it was going to happen, it's going to happen is what I would say. But if it's not going to happen, I'm completely okay with it. About 2 years ago, my husband and I did start trying, and it kind of felt foreign. It didn't feel like, it felt like I was forcing it, and we didn't get pregnant. And so kind of from that point moving forward, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to just take it as it is. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm so glad now looking at where my life is now as opposed to a couple years back when we were trying. I was like, you know what? Everything happens in the divine timing that it's meant to. And so how this all kind of came about, how I kind of, like I mentioned, felt like I saw the synchronicities happening was back over this summer. I had gone to my cousin's house and we were hanging out, and it was just about before I was about to leave. And she had said, she's like, do you think that, because you're doing all of this stuff or have been, really a part of this spiritual journey that you've kind of taken, this awakening journey, whatever you want to call it, and, kind of shifted your life, that this is all leading to you becoming a mom? And I'm like, I don't know, I guess we'll see. And it's funny because, as I've mentioned on the podcast, I would say my awakening or this new chapter of my life kind of started about 3 years ago. And in the last year and a half, I've really kind of dove a little bit deeper into really kind of bettering myself, both health-wise. Like, I really calmed down with, drinking. That was one of them. As I shared previously, I had got my implants taken out because I knew that they were making me sick. And so that whole journey was last year as well. And even just, being more conscientious with my health and working out, just kind of this whole shift in my life is what I've kind of been doing the last couple years. And so she had mentioned, she's like, wouldn't that be funny if, you're doing all this not knowing it's because you're supposed to be a mom? So that kind of planted the seed a little bit. That was the first time it was kind of in the ethers, if you will. And so moving forward, it was probably around that same time. I have, really kind of been intrigued with learning about different type of metaphysical things. And so over the summer, I was diving a little bit deeper with the Akashic records and opening my own records. And through one of my meditations in the Akashic records, what had come, and like I said, this was shortly after I talked to my cousin, was I got this message that I would become a mom before the end of the year. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll see. I mean, to be continued. I jotted it down in my journal, but I didn't really think too much more about it. It was just kind of like, okay, I guess we'll see if this message comes to fruition or not. So after I had received that message, it was probably about fall time of this past year. We unfortunately received news that one of our family members, she was pregnant and she lost the baby. And on that same day, I wanted to text her. And so I was in my backyard and my husband had come out. He went to tell me something. He was like, "Oh my gosh, look at over here. Look at this butterfly." And there was a butterfly on this kind of little bar area that we have outside. And I walked over and it was just walking along the bar. And I was like, oh, well, butterflies symbolize the life cycle. They, can symbolize death, as well as birth, rebirth. And no sooner did I say that, we have this little plant that's outside, that's a Day of the Dead skull, and the butterfly started walking on it. And so I was like, it's probably a message, of the loss of that baby. And so I thanked the butterfly for its message. And as soon as I thanked it, the butterfly flew away. And I was just like, whoa, that was kind of crazy. My husband was like, yeah, that's kind of wild. The very next day, I was outside, and after I was done with my meditation, I was journaling, and I was writing in my journal. I had said, something along the lines about appreciating the little things in life. And no sooner did I say that, this other white butterfly, the one from the day before, was a black monarch, and then this butterfly was a white one, started walking around me. And I mean, we have butterflies in our yard all the time, but they're usually flying around. So these last two, they were walking around me, and instantly when I saw it walking around me, I was like, wouldn't that be something if because this butterfly was white, it's symbolizing that I'm going to become pregnant. And when I said that, the butterfly could see its wing because it was walking around me, and it had two little dots. And I was like, and maybe that means two lives are coming in. So myself and someone else becoming pregnant. And 2 weeks later, I got pregnant. So it was pretty crazy that I had kind of these little symbolisms that had, kind of led into the pregnancy. But when I actually found out, I got pregnant 2 weeks later, and then it was another couple weeks when I found out, and I felt this flutter in my body, and I was like, I have never felt that before. I know this has to be something. And sure enough, I had taken a pregnancy test and found out I was pregnant. So it's definitely such a wild thing, all the emotions and stuff that come through, instantly. I was definitely so happy to know that this was going to be the next chapter in my life and in my husband's life. But I really, had to take my time with digesting it, because there's a lot of things that kind of arose from finding out that I was going to be starting a family and be a mommy. And, once the excitement kind of settled down, some of the things that started to arise for me was just like, what does this mean for me? Number one, but number two, what does this mean for my career? What does this mean for, balancing that age-old question of, family and personal life and career? And something that really kind of stuck out to me was, I've taken so much time to really invest in myself and to really invest in trying to find, what I'm supposed to do with my life, what I want to do with my career, what I see myself as, in this world, like what my mission or my purpose is. And so finding out, that I was a mommy, I'm like, okay, that's great. Like, that's definitely a piece of it. But then there was this other kind of shadow side to it where it was just like, okay, well, what does this mean in terms of, all of this work that I've been putting in for, my career and how I see myself, as far as, my soul's work, if you will. And so I really had to kind of sit with that. And that's why I think I had to take a couple months off from, podcasting and from recording, is because I really needed to take time to really settle into this new shift in my story. Because, before this, I was just like gung-ho, it was going to go this way. And now, as life will happen, it always goes this way, where it's like, actually, no matter how much you plan, we're going to go a different route. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means you're going to have to, adjust and kind of go down that road. And so I, really tried to kind of sit with some of these questions that I had with myself. And I'll be honest, when I found out about becoming pregnant, like a big part of me was like, oh, well, maybe that's my purpose. My purpose is just to become, a mom. And that's great because I have plenty of my friends are stay-at-home moms, and they're absolutely wonderful. They kick ass at it. And I knew that it's something that was really important to me, is that I really want to be very much so involved in my children's lives and really involved in, raising them, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom for many years, and that was something that was really important to me. So I know that that was a piece of it, but I was like, how do you juggle this with, not putting all of my ambitions and goals and other things in life on the sidelines? And to be honest, I still don't know. I don't know how I'm supposed to juggle everything, but I kind of had to like work through some of these thought processes of like, okay, am I just going to be a mom that, like that's all I'm doing, or am I going to still try to juggle, all of my career and my ambitions as well? And so I kind of worked through some of those things, and something that I kind of came up with at this point in my juncture is that I definitely want to make both work, and be very much so that very involved mommy, but also have my career and my ambitions and my goals and dreams as well, not feeling as if I'm letting go of something in terms of where I see myself. So I really kind of took that time to kind of sit with this new shift in my reality, and really kind of come to terms with like, okay, where do I see myself? And, for me, what I came up with is that something that's really important for me is that I still very much so have my own identity, as well as, have this new part of my chapter in my book of becoming a mommy be a big part of that as well. And I think a lot of women kind of face this same struggle where, starting a family. I know I have friends where they were full blown in careers, and then they decided that, it was best for their family to be a stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's 1,000% so admirable. And that's something where I'm like, okay, so I already shifted from like the big girl job, which is kind of funny because I'm like, that already happened naturally. And now here I am going to be a mommy, but then I have, like this podcast, for example, and I have my QHHT work. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I make both of these work? And that's a part of what I guess they say, you just figure it out. Somehow you just make it work. And for me, that was a big part of kind of the last couple months, is really kind of diving deep into that. And also just having those questions of like, how do you navigate this best to where you can have the best of both worlds? And that's, I guess, what I'm going to find out. I'm going to, do my best to try to juggle both of them. But what's funny too is that since I've become pregnant, there's been some funny things that have happened, and some of those things that I just wasn't expecting, because literally pregnancy for everyone is completely different. But I feel like your experiences within it are also vastly different. And so I'm just going to speak about what's happened with mine so far. But one of the biggest things that kind of happened that threw me for a complete loop was me finding out the gender of our baby. So it's so funny because since the beginning, I had always thought I was going to have a girl. And even into this pregnancy, I was like, okay, do not get attached to, one or the other. And as much as I told myself that, I still got attached to the idea that I was having a girl. And I feel like this is really important to talk about, because I did not expect this to kind of play out the way that it did. And maybe it's the same for other people as well, that they experience this. But with the whole gender thing, I had really kind of thought, I was being as neutral as possible. And then I didn't realize that I did attach emotions to, having the girl. And so we went through and we're like, okay, yeah, we want to have a gender reveal just with close family. And so we did. And I looking back, kind of wish that I didn't, because I didn't realize my reaction would be the way that it was. And so we had had our gender reveal, like I said, with a close friends and family. And that day I started getting so nervous, and I don't even know why. I started kind of getting like weirdly panicky over finding out, like, I don't know, maybe it's just natural nerves, but for me, I was just like, okay, I didn't expect to have kind of these emotions start to arise. And so the anticipation was killing all of us, but I'm like, maybe that's what it was. But anyways, we got this cute cake made, and we're ready to, cut it open and find out what it was. And so when we did, and I opened the cake, I saw blue, and we found out we were having a boy. And instantly, I did not know how to feel. I was shocked, which was the first thing. But the second thing is I started to get really, how can I even describe this? It was like confusion mixed with not knowing how to feel, because I was like, how do you parent a boy? Because I, in my head, didn't realize that I had attached my emotions to thinking it was a girl. So when I saw that it was going to be a boy, I'm like, I don't even know how to feel about this. And so I'm in a room with my family, and everyone's cheering and they're so excited, and here I am, straight faced, and my sister has the camera, and she's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I don't know how I feel. I don't know how to feel. And I started to get this like mama bear, almost kind of protective mode in, because I was thinking to myself, oh, you hear my dog snoring in the background, sorry about that. But I started to feel like, does this mean I have to be more of a parent now, because I don't want to have any of the toxic masculinity playing into my baby, and I want to make sure that he's emotionally emotionally and in tuned, and all of these things are just running through my head, where I'm like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I not just excited to find out, great, we're having a boy, awesome, let's celebrate? Like, all of these fears and these emotions started like rising, and then here I am in a room full of, thank God, my close family, but I'm glad that it wasn't a huge party, but still faking a smile. And so and we did the gender reveal right at the beginning of our get together, and so I had to go through the entire get together faking a smile, faking my emotions, where I'm like, if you were to take it from my experience, maybe, I guess my advice would be, and again, everyone is different, this is just what I experienced, but looking at it in hindsight, it might have been better for me to do it alone with my husband first and then share the news. And that was just my experience, because I had all of these weird emotions and fears and protective weird emotions kind of arise through the gender reveal without even realizing that would happen. And so, I am faking the smile and like trying to put on like a front, like, yeah, it's great, when really inside I'm just like, oh my God, like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling like this? What's the matter with you? All of these things. And so everyone left, and everyone can kind of pick up on me because I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm not very good at hiding my emotions, but I did the best I could. And so when everyone left, my husband, was talking to me, and I was trying to explain myself, but even as I was explaining myself, it just all was coming out wrong. And then he's like, are you even like happy we're having a baby? And then I start crying. I'm like, of course I am. And then it's just like, I'm all, okay, this conversation is not going anywhere. I literally bawled myself to sleep that night. It was awful. I just spiraled out of control, because then I'm feeling so guilty, where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, because it's not a girl, like, this is how my reaction is, like, and feeling so shameful for that and guilty. But again, I just had to give myself that time to really sit with myself and understand, okay, why am I feeling this way, and where is this coming from, and how do I get myself to that place where I feel a little bit like more clear on why I'm responding this way. And so that night was awful. It was what it was. And the next day I was feeling like shit. I was just like completely, still like feeling awful about, why was I feeling the way that I was feeling. And so one of my girlfriends, she is a mom, and she had texted me. I'm sure she had spoken to our friend, because our husbands are friends. And so she had texted me seeing how I was. And so I called her, I texted her, I was like, are you free? And she's like, yeah. And I called her and she's like, hey, how are you? And then I just started bawling, crying again. I'm just like, I don't know how I feel. And she really was a godsend, helping me to navigate my feelings, because she was like, this is normal. She's like, even at my own gender reveal, like, I didn't know how I even felt. And it's uncomfortable when you're around people not knowing how you are feeling, and then you're around other people that are just celebrating, they're just excited for you, and they should be excited for you, but you're like, I don't know if I'm on that level right now. I'm on the level of just trying to figure it out. And so it was so nice to be able to talk to someone that could relate. And that's why I wanted to share this, because I'm like, I don't know if anybody else has had, adverse reactions during their gender reveal like I did. But I, was like, okay, so I'm not the only one. I'm not nuts. I'm not crazy. But, she really did help me in kind of discussing, in me figuring out, why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And what I realized was my biggest reaction was like, oh, does this mean I have to be like more of like a mama bear? And because my biggest fear that kind of came up was, I don't want to have that toxic masculinity stuff kind of come into, my parenting. But at the same time, it's like you do start to have these emotions or these fears arise when you're in that parent mode that I wasn't used to. And so for me, that was like a big thing. And then I also felt like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Because, friends and family are just excited, but they're saying like, oh, he's going to be in this sport, and he's going to be into this and that. And like all of these, like, almost planning his life of like what he's going to be into or not into from the get-go. And for me, I was like, well, what if he's not into that? Like, he's allowed to do whatever, activities that he's into. And so it was the first time that I felt very protective. And I probably would have felt like that even with a girl, to be honest. But I think because I am a female, I'm like, oh, I know how to navigate female. But because it's a boy, I'm like, oh, how do you navigate, having a boy, and making sure that, these values or these things that are really important to me, that, having emotional intelligence and all this stuff is really something that I want him to be able to have and to experience. And so for me, it was like, oh, the reason why I was having these like stronger emotions is just because it's all new, and it's the first time that I felt really kind of protective in a way. And also because I was putting my expectation on the whole thing, even though I was trying not to, but I still had expectation from it. And so from that experience, now coming around full circle, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have a little boy. I absolutely cannot wait to meet him and to be able to do all these fun things. And it was really great because my sister, she had, reached back out to me the next day and was like, hey, are you doing okay? As well. And so when I was talking to her, she'd even said, she's like, oh, I actually, because I was explaining some of these things, that I had kind of fears with raising boys. And she was like, oh, I heard about this really great book. And I think it's called Raising Cain or something like that. And it's all about being able to help preserve the emotional well-being of boys. And I started reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And so I'll even add the book in my show link in case anyone's interested in reading it. But it's so fascinating because it kind of goes over, all of these different things about, raising boys. and how to not have those toxic masculine traits like boys don't cry and all those things. And what's really funny is I started to remember when I was kind of going through all this experience and everything with like the whole gender reveal and all that, is I even back in college did my senior thesis on toxic masculinity. So it's kind of funny. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I did do my senior thesis on that. And so I'm like, maybe it's been something that has been really important to me for a long time. And that's maybe why or where these emotions were kind of coming from, from previously with some of my experience with, like learning about it and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, it was kind of a wild experience that I was not expecting. And so, the question that I have for you is to gender reveal or not to gender reveal? That is the question. If you want to do that in front of people or not in front of people, it totally is a personal decision. But from my experience, I was like, you know what? Maybe it will be better for the next one to do it, just in that safe space with just my husband and I first, so that I can be able to have whatever emotion that I need to have happen. But I mean, this is my first two. So these are all going to be firsts that I'm sharing because this has never happened before. So anyways, that was something that's kind of come around full circle. And another experience that I have kind of come to terms with too, which has been really amazing so far, was I really knew that I wanted to go as natural as possible when it came to delivery and just my pregnancy in general. I had kind of researched a little bit about prenatals and some of the pros and cons of them. And so and then also the whole delivery where, I was like, okay, I really kind of want to go as natural as possible. So how do I search midwives? That was something that was, really important to me, in finding the right one. And it's kind of funny when you start to put the energy out there of like you want to do things a certain way, and how literally if it's meant to happen, things just align so easily in some things in life. And so that was kind of my experience with my whole midwife, where I had started just Googling and researching and looking up different reviews on different midwives like around my area. And I found this gal who's local in my area. And what's so funny, she has the same name as my middle name. And I was like, oh, there's another synchronicity. But I met her and she has just been absolutely phenomenal. And so in that whole journey, I have so far, been able to just experience, because what I decided to do was start with my OB just to kind of be able to get all of my tests and stuff done, cover through the insurance, but also go to my midwife. That's who I'll be going to as far as, my delivery, and then even the remainder of my appointments and stuff. And she has been, so I can say that I've experienced a little bit of both. I've experienced some of my OB, and then I've experienced my midwife, because I've been kind of doing both. And then I'm going to be transitioning and just to going to my midwife by the end of this month and through delivery and labor. But kind of seeing the difference between the two, I can say my experience has been where my midwife has been very hands-on. The OB has been fine. And to be honest, like it's completely up to, whoever you are, like, it's completely up to the individual of like what route works best for you. This is just my experience and what I've been able to experience so far. And the difference between the two, a big one has been how hands-on my midwife has been as opposed to the OB. And for me, like it was really important to have that hands-on experience. And I know that I'm going to see that even that much more, especially through labor and delivery, because that's something that I knew that was really important to me. But it was interesting because when I had first said this to my husband, he kind of raised an eyebrow like, okay, you want to go to a midwife? And I had to explain to him, I'm like, okay, it's not this like little old lady in the hills where we deliver in a hut. And granted, that's even badass too, if that's you. But I was like, no, like the midwife that I'm looking at, she's very much so qualified. All of those things that he had kind of fears of, surrounded around was just like my safety and obviously baby safety. And they very much so have all of those protocols and things in line. It's least invasive, whereas there's more interventions when you go with the OB route. And so for me, I wanted as least interventions unless we needed them. And then, kind of move my way through however the baby and whatever happens, like that's how, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And so for me, with my midwife, what's really great is that she actually works very closely with a nutritionist as well. And so that has been such a beautiful experience too, where I have been fortunate to be able to really hone in on my diet and my nutrients, because I was really nervous because I don't eat meat. I stopped eating fish probably about a year ago, and so I was really nervous about like protein and getting enough and all of that. And so I did actually decide to go back to pescatarian, so I do have fish like here and there. But working with the nutritionist, I have been able to really like make sure that I'm getting the correct amount of nutrients. And what's wonderful is they really look all over your lab work and everything else to make sure that you really are, on point as far as your diet. So if you have the means to be able to work with a nutritionist through your pregnancy, I highly recommend it. And what's also really awesome is that she even has this pregnancy tea that I've been taking. And so I take this instead of a prenatal. And the pregnancy tea is awesome. It has all of the main ingredients that you basically need as far as your nutrients are concerned. And I can even, add that to my show notes as well. And so I just take this tea 4 times a day, 1 cup 4 times a day. And so that's been really nice, like being able to have something that's a little bit more natural and straight from a food source, which was really important to me as well. And also just even with the midwife too, as far as that hands-on experience, it's been really nice being able to have someone that really is kind of almost like answering questions or giving me information before I even have the questions. And so that's been something that I've really appreciated in terms of that really like hands-on feeling, and she will be the one that's with me from start to finish. So with my OB, that's another con that I kind of experienced, which I kind of knew that, where they have a network of doctors. So you don't necessarily get the doctor that you meet, at your appointments. It could be, someone else. And so for me, I wanted to have the same person the whole time. So if you're interested in midwifery, I highly recommend it. It's been a beautiful experience so far. Granted, I haven't delivered, and so I don't know what that experience is going to be like. But I'm actually going to give birth at a birthing center. She offers both in-home births and then a birthing center as well. So I'm actually going to go to a birthing center. It's cool. I'm going to be doing the water birth because they have like a little pool in there. They have these like ladders and stuff, like if I need to hold on to it, all of that. But the birthing center is actually where I will be giving birth. So that will be exciting as well. But so far pregnancy has definitely been a beautiful experience, but there's also been some, kind of weird things that have happened kind of in between. And the last thing I wanted to kind of end on today was going back to that butterfly story where I'd mentioned that the butterfly had 2 dots on it. And I was like, oh, maybe this is 2 lives coming in. Well, lo and behold, a month after I had announced that we were pregnant, my brother and sister-in-law announced that they were pregnant as well. So that was the second dot that I was seeing. So what's been really cool is that I've been sharing this pregnancy with my sister-in-law as well. And so it's been really nice being able to have someone that completely understands, what you're going through. And that has been a huge factor for me, is just really outreaching to your community. And that's why I wanted to share my journey and share my experience with you guys kind of in real time as it's happening. Because you don't realize how much you need your tribe. And that has been something that I constantly keep getting reminded of through this soulful journey, is that every time, it is an individual one, don't get me wrong. And when you go through your lessons, you have to be able to navigate them in order to get through the other side. However, you have your people, you have your tribe, and utilize them when you need it, because time and time again, whenever I am at my lowest of lows, when I outreach to my community of people, my close friends, my close family, I can't even tell you how helpful it is for me to be able to receive that. And so even for me going through pregnancy with my sister-in-law, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a godsend. Like, I am so grateful that we're able to do this together, because it's hard. And our husbands, there's been a couple of zingers where they're like, they don't get it. And so being able to talk to someone that gets it, and then be able, to come back around and talk to my husband and be like, okay, this is what I was meaning, especially through the whole gender reveal thing. Me being able to kind of talk to my peeps, and then, my other female counterparts that have been there ahead of me, and then be able to talk to him. It was so much easier for me to articulate, oh, this is where I was coming from, for him to understand and be like, okay, like, and him even being appreciative, like, see, you need your girls, you need your community, in order for you to feel heard. And I think that that's my biggest point, is like, through life, like up to this point, I have really just appreciated having that tribe. And so I hope that I can provide that for you guys tuning in, on your own journeys. I hope this is something that can help you guys as well, to be able to feel like you have somewhere to feel heard, or just to laugh at my own experience, if that's all it is. But anyways, that's all the time I have for today. I just wanted to thank you guys again for tuning in after these last couple months of my absence. I appreciate being able to get back in the saddle and be able to talk to you guys, and to be able to get back to sharing my soulful journey. And again, I would love to hear from all of you, so please feel free to reach out. I have a new Instagram, so feel free to reach out to me on that one. It's at leeann.soulful. That is LEEANN.soulful. And I'll even put that in the show notes as well. So anyways, I hope everyone has a beautiful day, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.